Hey, welcome back to the WESDAY NITE podcast. It's your host, Wes Manginsay. I'm feeling good today, real good. I'm currently in a meeting room on the bottom floor, like floor B, like near Argo. Like, you guys know exactly where I'm at right now, G71. But, like, I have no permission to be here, so the show is going rogue. I'm right now just trying to record this episode as fast as I can because anyone could just walk in right now and be like, hey, we're using this room. I don't want to interrupt myself while I'm in the flow with you guys. So let's just knock this out. Yeah. Today's been really good though. I've made every single like trash can shot that I took today, and I took some long ones too. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not. These weren't petty dunks. I was pulling up like Steph with the. It was just back rim every time. Just swish, swish, swish. It's been a good day. I'm gonna get lunch after this. I had breakfast, I woke up early. My quality of sleep is getting better, sort of. I mean, I'm kind of back on schedule with waking up at like 8 a.m., 9 a.m. like I usually do. I mean, today I kind of felt a little booty, but it's been worse. So I've been getting better with sleep. I'm becoming less of Edward Norton in Fight Club, because who knows, man? Like I could be lacking sleep, and all of a sudden I'm like planning the next invasion of society here. That's what this podcast is, actually. I'm like half awake. I'm Tyler Durden right now. You guys aren't talking to Wes Manginsay. So, welcome to the show. And today we're actually doing a review today. We're doing a review on the new Danny Brown JPEG Mafia album, Scaring the Hoes. You know what it is. These are two artists that I'm like pretty fond of. I'm like big fans. I was looking forward to this album. It just came out like a few days ago, and I thought might as well just share my initial thoughts. The timing's too good. It's sort of been like almost a week since it's been out. So, I've been giving it a pretty keen listen. But first, I have to give you guys just sort of a quick rundown on who these guys are. Like, if you don't know any of the names I just said, then you're in for a really interesting episode, an interesting ride, some absurd recommendations for music. I guess we'll start with JPEG Mafia, producer of the album, also just a great rapper. He, I guess, dabbles in experimental hip hop. I hate saying experimental hip hop. I feel like the genre in itself, like all genres should be experiment, but that's besides the point. I mean, he kind of just dips into like less mainstream sounds, less sort of like conventional song structures, sound selections. People want to call it glitch hop, industrial hip hop, maybe even punk rap or noise rap, whatever you want to call it. Like he's out there, he's abrasive, he's an amazing artist. Born in Flatbush, Brooklyn, actually, so kind of a New York native, but he grew up mainly in Alabama. And artistically, sort of when he started dropping music seriously, he kind of came up in the Baltimore scene. So, kind of a varied artist of different backgrounds, troubled childhood. I don't want to like dip into too much of that, but I'm sure it just plays a part in like the music he makes now. And he's actually a veteran, honorably discharged though. So kind of an outspoken guy, as you can imagine. He took a Air Force tour, mostly in Iraq, and then stopped in places like Kuwait, Germany, Japan, parts of North Africa. He's kind of just been around the globe, not only traveling in music, but in his past with the military, which is a very interesting sort of background. And it kind of gives you a lot of context because, especially earlier on in his music career, he dipped into very political topics. His first studio album was Black Ben Carson in 2016. Great title. Ben Carson was a African American presidential candidate who ran Republican. He's sort of poking fun at sort of that guy and politics in general. It's a very energetic. I mean, it's kind of the way I'm describing some of these albums. It's just more of his music in general too. So, I mean, this is one of the more tame albums, if anything. But the first half is very much in your face, and you kind of get a style, like a taste of his style. He has a more calmer and like melodic second half, kind of a theme throughout his whole albums, and sort of how he looks at creating like a full length project. Yeah, some of my favorite tracks on there is Just Killed a Cop, I'm Horny, Boy, 27 Club, This That Kid Cudi Could Have Been. these Saying these titles are gonna be really fun for me because I just have an excuse to say some pretty crazy phrases. And that's his first album. He had ended up moving from Baltimore into LA during the production or during the creating process of Veteran. I'm like looking behind my back, seeing if anyone's like about to enter this room. It's really sporadic energy to this podcast, but you know what? I'm feeling it. I'm feeling good. All right, so Veteran 2018. This is the album that got me into JPEG Mafia. Amazing production, amazing. It's just an amazing album. Just go listen to that one. It's still my favorite of his. I still think it's his best in terms of just the concepts and his image that he sort of presented to the music scene with this album. Veteran, of course, is related to his background. A lot of internet culture. I mean, he had mixtapes from before too, under the name Devin Hendrix, and you know had very much like a cloud rap, ethereal thing going on always. But Veteran, he just took it to another level, and the energy was like he even said for himself like very unfiltered, and I really like that sort of style and the way he incorporated the internet and sort of this new sort of way of consumption that we listen to music in like his own music. Produced in Baltimore, but then he later moved to LA to mix and master it and just to join the music scene altogether. So I think he's still in LA. Of course, he probably travels a lot, but I think that's where he still mainly chills. My favorite tracks on there are like pretty much the first six tracks: 1539 North Calvert, Thug Tears, Baby I'm Bleeding, Rainbow Six is another good track. But that album is just mwah, you know what I mean? Soon after that, he wanted to come up with like a good follow up, so he dropped All My Heroes Are Cornballs. You know, sort of the marketing of that was him addressing the fact that he wouldn't reach the hype that was currently building for him, calling the album a disappointment before it came out. And it's kind of a calmer. I don't know if you can even call his music calm, but definitely more calm than Veteran. He's referencing a lot more R&B concepts. I think basic bitch tear gas and like all these different songs. Like he started doing like covers or interpolations of lyrics to R&B songs. He's singing a lot more in this album. Of course, auto-tuned because he's a rapper. And I mean, granted, I'm not crapping on his singing. I feel like he could sing kind of well, but he's a rapper. I mean, let's keep that clear. And my favorite tracks on that are Beta Male Strategies, Grimy Waifu, Poppy I Missed You. Dude, it's just so I feel so unhinged right now. This is like really great. I really hope you're feeling like the anxiety that I do right now. Really tried to paint a scene because I'm not supposed to be in this room. Okay. After that, he kind of signed with a major label, dropping EPs all throughout the majority of the pandemic. I don't know. I don't even know what label he signed to, but he sort of ended off his endeavors with labels with LP, which came out in 2021. There were online and offline versions. Very interesting enough. I mean, all of it is up for streaming and whatnot, but the online version is the main commercial one, and the offline was released before sample clearances and all that. Very much a sample-based artist, you know, like I said, with sort of referencing the internet a lot. And I mean, his name is JPEG Mafia. I don't know if you can sort of imagine the music. Anyways, yeah, my favorite tracks off of LP, which some people say the offline version is like his best album. I mean, just go judge for yourself. He has a very interesting discography. But my favorite tracks are Dirty, What Kind of Rappin' Is This, Dikembe, the Untitled track, and Ghost of Ranking Dread. Those are some really great tracks. And currently, I mean, besides this collab album that he has with Danny Brown that's out right now, he has two more albums coming out this year. So you be the judge of sort of how good this guy is, his newer stuff, if he's evolving at all. I personally think he is, but he's still staying true to a lot of his identity, especially in production. You kind of know when you're listening to one of his beats. It's crazy, kind of. He's a crazy guy. And speaking of crazy guys, he decided to collab with Danny Brown, a Detroit rapper. Interesting fact, his father is half Filipino, so that's cool. Filipino pride, I guess. Danny Brown, certified Filipino. He's invited. He's invited to eat lechon and sinigang with us in the function. You know what I'm saying? He's a lot more of an older artist, I guess. I mean, not I'm not calling. He's old actually. I'm calling him old. His first album, studio album, was The Hybrid in 2010. Funny enough, I still need to listen to that album. I feel like it's just so far, oh, like removed from the Danny Brown that I got to know through like what in between Atrocity Exhibition and you know what I'm saying. But I'll talk about those albums later. But yeah, that's his first studio album. I got to give it a listen. I'm sure it's a classic. That came out in 2010, The Hybrid, and then Triple X came out the year after, which is just an amazing, amazing album. It's kind of similar to JPEG Mafia's first studio album, kind of having this like really fun, energetic, just hype first half, and a more serious second half. Triple X stands for his explicit nature, also the fact that he made this album for his 30th birthday. It's a great cover. I mean, I personally like the cover of it too. It's just a good album. You got to listen to it. My favorite tracks are Die Like a Rock Star, Blunt After Blunt, DNA, Party All the Time. Definitely a highlight of rap in general in the 2010s. His next album, Old, which sort of is making fun of himself and also people who are just, oh, he's like, I like the old Danny Brown or whatever, came out in 2013, sort of recorded in between Triple X and 2013 all throughout. It definitely more of a electronic dance inspired production, like hype in that rave sort of sense. Oh my gosh, I really feel like someone's right behind me. Like every time it's he was inspired by the feeling that Kid A sort of gave audiences by Radiohead, like the album Kid A, because it was like sort of a pivot from OK Computer, the first sort of major Radiohead album. I guess my favorite tracks off of Old are Old, Dip, Kush Coma. I'm just having so much fun saying these titles. After that, he came out with Atrocity Exhibition in 2016, which is a legendary album. I don't care what your opinion is on Danny Brown's voice. He has a very unique style of delivery. Maybe I should have said this earlier, but yeah, he is kind of like, he's got a voice like this, and he talks like, very high pitched. And it took me some time to get used to his voice, but once you do, it's just an amazing experience. He went broke after making almost went broke after making this album. Really focused on capturing a legendary moment in his career, cementing himself as sort of this rap legend. My favorite tracks on this are Downward Spiral, Really Dough, Ain't It Funny, Pneumonia, When It Rain. Like all great tracks. It's just a solid album front to back, and that one's sort of the one that got me into like really, really listening to him. That was like his latest album when I started listening to him back in like 2018, I guess, around that time. His latest solo project, You Know What I'm Saying, that's the album title, came out 2019 on my dad's birthday, funny enough, on October 4th. That one's a Q-Tip executive produced album, recorded around, I think, in Q-Tip's studio in Jersey, actually. And this is a more like classic sort of hip hop sound. He kind of returns to like this like normalcy in his voice, I guess. I mean, of course he still has his like unique, high pitched delivery, but he really tones it down, and you could tell that he's sort of reflecting on like the insane storm that was his come up in the early tens, and he seems calmer in this in this album now. JPEG Mafia actually produced a song on this album. I'm sure this was sort of the start of their working relationship. Other tracks produced on that album were by Flying Lotus, Thundercat, Standing on the Corner. Just a great album. You Know What I'm Saying is definitely one of his shorter projects, and I'd probably say the worst out of all the ones that I've kind of mentioned and expanded on, but it's still great. It still sort of was a highlight of the year in 2019, and I actually saw him live after this album dropped, which was really fun. I've seen JPEG Mafia live twice, after Veteran and then after Cornballs. these titles really make it hard for me to like talk seriously, but these are ridiculous guys. This is sort of like the point of what I'm trying to say. My favorite tracks off his last album were Best Life and Combat, but that's just getting this sort of list out of the way right now, establishing who they are. Great, just great. Okay, I gotta like take a breath. Maybe me liking them sort of says a lot about who I am, and the fact that I'm reviewing "Scaring the Hose" right now is kind of funny because maybe I am scaring the hose with this review right now, and like how much I know about these artists. They're great though. That's all I can really say. You got to see them live. You got to listen to some of these albums at least. They say a lot about sort of this last decade of rap, or at least they represent a lot of this last decade of rap. Yeah, we're just gonna get into the review. Scaring the Hose. It's first of all a dope album cover. It's like this like 70s style. I mean, they all have good covers, but this one is just like I don't know. It's off the bat. It's already seems like a classic sort of like I'd love to have the vinyl kind of album. And it starts off with Lean Beef Patty. This was like the first single of the album too, and it actually has a sample of P Diddy's "I Need a Girl" Part Two. This track kind of grew on me. I didn't really like it when it came out at first. Oh, the mixing! Oh my gosh, the mixing! It's so his voice is drowned out. Yeah, I don't really. I sort of grew to not care about the mixing of any of JPEG Mafia's works to begin with, but especially in this album, just because this unhinged energy and sort of how like them getting drowned out in the instrumental is almost it's on brand. I don't give it too much of a negative. Granted, I don't really hear a lot of what Danny Brown's saying sort of at the back end of this track, but gosh, that sample, it just kind of they should give like what do you call those? They should give a epilepsy warning for some of these. It's almost like I don't even know if I want to see these live because like maybe my brain's gonna literally explode. And okay, going off into the next track, "Step a Pig." Now this track is amazing. I love the production on it. I'm probably gonna like pause sort of this recording to listen to some of these tracks again, but "Step a Pig" is just super lush production with like these crazy sort of bass hits that come in, and like it's almost I don't even know what to say other than it's not even like dance oriented as much as it is one of like those EDM like big drops sort of things. And then like JPEG comes in like back in his minute, and it's like it's what I'd expect from like this sort of production, this song, this style of song is like what I expected. And I'm glad it was like the first like song that I listened to that was like actually because the first and the third track came out as singles, so it was like the first song that I played that was like for this album that I discovered within this album, and great start, I guess, for me, like in terms of like what this album was gonna feel like. I'm just gonna give it a listen again. Why not? Let's just like give these a listen. Let's like calm down, and I mean, I'm not gonna be calming down listening to these, but let's just like take a moment. I'm gonna be right back. Dang, okay, I'm back. What did I say about that? Great track. I don't know. I kind of said what I needed to. Very, like I said, lush production, but hype. It's great. I mean, I've been listening to it. That's definitely one of the most replayable tracks in this album so far. And we're transitioning into the third track, "Scaring the Hose," the title track. And we had it samples this clap and sax from Dirty Beach's Untitled track from 2012. It has this eeriness to it, like it's supposed, like with sort of suggested with the title. And I mean, I mess with it. I definitely like this sort of single more than Lean Beef Patty, the first track, and sort of Danny Brown kind of comes into his own more so in this track. Uh, and like I said, it has this eeriness to it. This I've never heard a sax really used with like these trap drums like this in like this sort of way before. Like this is sort of the what I come to expect from JPEG, I guess, in terms of production. Really trying to just introducing these different ideas of like familiar things in sort of clashing genres almost. Like who do you know raps on a sax over like these crazy drums with like this weird spaced out clap that's like repeating like it doesn't it's not supposed to make sense like this really like with any other artist does not make sense in terms of being used, but like, with them they just make it work. Just yeah, that's kind of simple. It's simply how I want to put it. That great title track and sort of encompasses like I guess what they're going for with this title. I really love this title of the album. Like because it like kind of commenting on what the title sort of means. It's very much like you don't play these guys in functions like that. It's not really like common for them to kind of for you to hear them just really honestly like they like I don't want to totally say underground because they're internet famous in some sense, but it's not mainstream music. I wouldn't really call them that, and so when you sort of play them around the hose, they might be scared. They might be like, "What is going on? What am I listening to? I'm just trying to vibe out," and you hitting me with this hyper aggressive production with Danny Brown's high pitched voice. It just makes a lot of sense. I'm really glad that they ended up really pulling through with this album, this collab album. And then going into track 4, Garbage Pail Kids. This is my least favorite out of all the tracks. I don't know, some people really like this, but I don't really like the sample. I don't find it like that catchy. There's some grit to the sample. It samples like this 80s Japanese commercial, and I'll give it that it has like this sort of this punch to it, and then like with the use of the electric guitar later in the track, it adds like this like unique feel, I guess. I just don't really find it all that interesting. Production wise, I don't know. This kind of like I said, one of the on the lower end of this album. It's a little too noisy for me. Yeah, I really like sort of how JPEG uses like melodies and licks throughout the instrumentals and all this sort of stuff. But I feel like the real catchiness and the soul of this record is in that electric guitar, and it sort of feels like the Japanese commercial sample is kind of unnecessary to me. I mean, granted, I make music and I'm not nearly as successful as these guys, so maybe I could take a class or two. But I'm not going to be listening to this one a lot. But that's, yeah, I wouldn't give it to, I wouldn't make it as a total negative, though. This would probably be on the higher end of some other sort of experimental rap albums in terms of quality. Fentanyl Tester is the next track number 5, and that one samples Khalees's Milkshake. And that track is so awesome. It's really, really aggressive and fast, and it sort of has like this dance element, almost dare I say Jersey like, especially with the sample chop at the end. But it's just a fun track. Fentanyl Tester is a fun track. I just wanted to listen to it again, actually, just because why not? I'm having so much fun. Uh, be right back. God, I hope Fentanyl doesn't feel like that song. Because I would try it. No, I'm playing. I'm playing. I think in general, JPEG's production just feels video game like. That one just sort of sounds like you're going through a level, and it's just a lot. It just really throwing a lot at you. Intense, but in a good way. The next track is Perfect, which is I mean, I think it was teased at some point during the making of this. It samples Procession of the Levites by Richard Smallwood, and it's just like a superhero track. It's like sort of these two. It's like it has this epic like horns and like they kind of come in like superheroes on this track. It's really really fun and and I'm not creative. I don't know. They're sort of. I was surprised when I heard this, and the production's great, but it's just like wow, like they just really sound like they're fusion, whatever, like in Dragon Ball. Like they're just coming together to like make this album and this song, and like they just sound grand. I don't even know why it's named. I don't know why any of these tracks are named why they are. It's kind of the nature of their music, I guess, and how it's presented. It's just a that one's a fun one. I think that one's more palatable too, in some sense, with the production. Doesn't really try to throw that many different things. I swear to God, someone opened the door. I saw or like tried to open the door. Right? I'm not the only one. Whatever. Oh no, that's behind me. That's in the room behind me. Okay. Gosh. Okay. Yes. So, yeah, let's just move. Keep it moving. Shut Your Up and Muddy Waters is sort of this split track where Danny Brown has his version, um, like in the beginning, and then it transitions to this other beat with JPEG Mafia and Muddy Waters. A really cool like sort of collab track idea, and the beat switch is pretty seamless, even though it seemed like they're distinctly different tracks. I like some of these I don't really have like all the samples. It's the album recently just came out, so if you know it, then props to you. But yeah, I think in general what they're sampling, I don't know, maybe like there's people within like their albums that like they've sampled that people haven't even like really like realized yet. The method that JPEG uses is very much taking from so many different things that it's really hard to recognize or point the origins to like where he's pulling from. I don't know. The way I sort of like approach music, it adds a lot of like fun sort of like mystery about the creative process into like making these. Next, going into the eighth track is Orange Juice Jones, which is apparently Danny Brown's favorite track. It samples Dear Michael by Michael Jackson, actually, 1975 track. And definitely on the tamer side, definitely more in Danny Brown's lane, his pocket, his sort of style, and it sounds very much like a you know what I'm saying sort of track. I mean, like JPEG, of course, mixes his own touches on it and makes it his own sort of thing, but that use of that sample is very much reminiscent of Danny Brown's last album, which I'm pretty sure is why he probably likes that track the most. It's on the simpler side, and on some level, I think Danny Brown appreciates that. Because if this album was just like those like 14 fentanyl tester beats, then it would have been a lot to sort of absorb. Interesting use of the sample, because I mean, in the original song, Michael's voice is definitely on a higher pitch, but they pitched it lower to kind of match Michael's later voice later on in his life and career. Interesting. I mean, really fun, like a real fun track. Definitely, like I said, more simple and easy to absorb compared to the rest of the album. And going into the ninth track, we got Kingdom Hearts Key, actually featuring Red Veil. I don't know if y'all mess with Red Veil like that, but he has great music out. I've only listened to some tracks by him, but I really like it's like stuff that he puts out too. And he pulls through on this track. I think the track samples Yakusoku wa Iranai. I don't know how to. Hopefully, I said that right. By Maya Sakamoto. It's sampling some video game or something like that, some show. Do any of these songs have hooks? I don't even know. Like, another great track. I'd probably say like on the lower end of like the ones that I like on this album, but I had fun listening to that one too. It was good. God Loves You, the next track, the 10th track. Now that one's a really good track. Is related to like this gospel sound, kind of similar to like what Kanye was doing on Donda kind of stuff. It samples like 2 seconds of Ski Mask the Slump God's Baby Wipe, which I liked. Something about what in the like Baptist. Great track. This track. I mean both. I mean Baby Wipe's cool, but God Loves You, good song. I want to let's give that one a listen too. Gosh, that bass with that gospel sample just makes it sound so epic, and like it really elevates it. And I wouldn't expect this like kind of bass to be so works so well with this like this like these gospel chants like "Yeah," and then a boom 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 boom. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be trying to like recreate the instruments, but it's a great track. Like I love it. Really on the higher end of that. Next, you have this interlude called "Run the Jewels," which is a duo. Funny enough, with like, well, I don't know what this has to like a rap duo, "Run the Jewels," with two rappers, LP and Killer Mike. LP is also a producer. Um, I guess it's sort of in relation to like what they do. I guess it's sort of like a call out, or not call out. Well, I don't know, maybe a call out, but more of like reference to what they're doing on this album in terms of like JPEG producing and rapping, and then Danny Brown also coming in to rap. It samples the sax in LL Cool J's what is it? Going Back to Cali, yeah. Yeah, there's like the sax solo at the beginning of of LL Cool J song, and they use it in this song. Interesting enough, and I mean it's a minute long. It was pretty. It's a cool little interlude. I didn't really think too much about it when I listened to it. Um, like I said, I have no idea what this has to do with the actual Run the Jewels, but it's like a funny title to see. Next, we have Jack Harlow Combo Meal, the next track title, track 12. It samples Ugly Beauty by Thelonious Monk, jazz artist. Really like the piano use in this one. I think in general, a theme with this is like with this album is it's really cool to see how they could kind of turn these like slower ideas and these very simple musical ideas and turn them into like this sort of hyper like mosh pit music almost. In general, these two guys are known for their, sort of that pit culture within their live performance. The beat kind of switches, and then JPEG sings on it. Kind of reminded me of All My Heroes, like that sort of that album's era. But I like it's cool. I think what they I don't want to read too much into it, of course, but I think they're sort of throughout this album, the theme is sort of referencing what sells, or like sort of questioning what sells in today's day and age. Danny Brown has this bitterness in that one line, like, "Oh, like y'all let Jack Harlow sell your chicken," and he's sort of thinking of maybe he's probably at some on some level he's probably thinking about himself and like, oh, like these guys can just come up like that out of the blue, and meanwhile I've been in the game for however long, sort of release these albums. I think JPEG probably relates on some level too, and they're sort of spitting in the face of like this music consumption today and sort of like how people are branded. I mean, scaring the hoes, you know what I mean? like who wants to be known as that? But like I said, they're really subverting their images and like what they mean to people, I guess. I don't know, maybe hoes really mess with this album. They probably don't though. All right, final two tracks. You got Ho or Heaven on Earth. Great use of another gospel sample there. I really like that piano and then the oh and then like all that like the chants. You killed it on the production with this. I mean, it's I really maybe I should have like looked into more of like the lyrics in some of this, but I don't know. Like I don't care about it as much as like these beats. Like these beats are so great. You guys ever have like your eye twitch, like when you like don't sleep well, or I don't know. My eyes like to twitch sometimes, and I can tell it's because I'm like ignoring my body wanting rest. I just don't care. They approach these structures within these songs on this album very simply. I mean, JPEG has a verse on this, and then Danny Brown comes in with his verse. I don't think there's any hooks on this album. I'm like pretty sure. And then they use like the outro with the original sort of gospel sample. I don't know the exact song that they're sort of sampling off of this one, but another one that seems relevant to this album cover, this gospel feel of it, and like old like 70s style and classic sort of bars from these guys. And that one's just another good one. Like if you like the sort of gospel sound and in these beats, give that one a listen. We're gonna end it off here with "Where You Get Your Coke From." This sort of like this bombastic ending. Yeah, nah, real noisy on that one. The bum 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 bum. I could see why they used that as the ending. And in general, JPEG likes to sort of end off with these almost cliffhanger like noisy beats to end off the album. Danny Brown's verse is sick on that. Sort of unhinged, really giving back like those atrocity exhibition vibes. He's got a nice Jimi Hendrix reference in there. And I think after this album was made, I'm pretty sure I don't want to talk, I mean, too much about his personal life because I don't really know the guy, but apparently he went to rehab after making this because he was indulging in narcotics and alcohol for the making of this. Even though I think at some point, like, there was a day where he knocked out like 7 verses in like a sober state. It kind of gives you a glimpse of like the process and the mindset of this album. And I mean, what an album! You know, I really had a lot of fun listening to it. Still gonna be listening to it again. A lot of these tracks are like really on the higher end of my rankings for both artists in their sort of throughout their discographies. Um, and you know, I'm gonna give it. I'm giving it an 8. I'm not. You know, I would even consider 9 if it went for some of the tracks that, frankly, I just don't vibe with the most. I don't like, some of the sample uses, and it's a little like some of the productions seems like forgettable in the grand scheme of what JPEG's been able to do in the past. But some of these are also just highlights. The Perfect beat, the Fentanyl Tester beat, Step a Pig, all the gospel sort of uses, and how that also sort of sets a more calm tone in the second half of this album. Just great stuff. Really good, really, really, really good stuff. Had a lot of fun listening to it. And guess what? I'm not going to be playing this at the party that I'm throwing on April 1st, April Fool's Day, yo. All right, this is an ad for my party. This whole podcast is low-key just an ad for this party that I'm throwing on April 1st. And this comes out is what, in like 3 days. So get ready for it. We're not playing this because we're not trying to scare the hoes. But I mean, if you got this far and you're into music and sort of like, I guess you want to get a glimpse of my taste outside of party settings and stuff like that. Hope this episode was interesting enough. I don't really have like, it's hard to find words for music for me. Like, it's hard for me to like really describe exactly what I like about stuff because I feel like not only does that maybe take away from the magic of why I like some music, but also just music isn't meant to really be described like in this sort of format. This is sort of just one big message to tell you to go check out their stuff, check out this album. And yeah, we got a party coming out. Oh, party coming out. We got a party that we're dropping April 1st. But yeah, we have a party. Hopefully, if you want to come, I'm not gonna give out my address or anything on this because like, what? Like, I'm not gonna be doing that. But we're throwing something. Hope you guys are able to come. I mean, you're pretty much invited. You know who you are if you're not invited because you know how we stand, you and me, personally, whoever is personally listening to this right now, you know where we stand and you're not invited. But everybody else who's listening, you're invited. I don't have beef with that many people, but I do got beef though, so don't come up if you got beef with me. Other than that, I hope you guys have a good time. I'm gonna see you in April. Um, Hopefully with something a little bit more or more hinged because right now I'm just like I'm still looking behind my back, checking if someone's gonna come into this room. But maybe you should too. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you should check your own back.